Hello. Am I
Hello.
am I showing up
Yes, hold on one
on the
sec.
screen?
Sorry, I thought I did that on purpose. I thought it was a
Nice.
fitting way to start
Dark
the
country.
yeah, to talk about the fitting way to start to discuss morality, precepts and such, because that's often what it
Evil ways.
becomes. That's
Yes.
often what it amounts to when you put morality and precepts in the hands of Bombus.
Evil ways.
In the wild, wild west of Muppo.
Yeah,
It just becomes, yeah,
I
not a good
love it.
thing. So sorry, I'm just trying to
So
unshare.
good.
One sec. Sorry about this. Yeah, there we
That's
go.
great.
And get us to normal. Yeah. So I thought it was a
Yeah,
fitting way to
perfect.
one of my favorite songs, absolute favorite songs. I love the genre actually. The dark country, urban country. I like Western
I've
music
never
in
I've
general.
never heard of that genre, to be honest. That's
Okay.
is it like
It's
a
it's more
sub genre
it's
kind of?
it's not. I don't think artists set out to be, dark country or urban country
Mm,
musicians. There might be nowadays. There
yeah.
might be one or two or whatever. It might be some that do, but it's generally something that kind of arose and was identified more than there's all kinds. There's dark country, dark blues, there's
Mm,
folk noir, it's called.
yeah.
It's all kind of this dark kind of, music that would accompany something like, I don't know, a movie like, or not a movie, a show like, what was the name of that? Where it was about the U.S. Marshals. Timothy, what's his name, was in it,
Mm,
I think. Anyway, it just was
yeah.
it's the TV show. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it's a bit dark, bit edgy, a bit contemporary,
Kind
but
yeah, I wonder if there's one of the original songs of that genre would have been the famous Ghost Riders in the Sky.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think there's classic stuff too that could
Yeah.
easily fit into that genre for sure. So anyway, I like that. I mean, I've liked westerns and particularly spaghetti western music. It's one of my favorite
Oh,
movie genres, and
cool.
I think
Yeah.
it's a very Mappo genre of of movies. Actually, it's
Yeah,
very
it kind of delves into the darker side
yeah,
of
yeah, the of the age
human
in which we
existence.
live. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah,
Yeah.
right. So yeah, I thought that was a fitting because, like I said, that's often what I think morality and precepts and such in the hands of Bombu disintegrates into in the Western Wild West of Mappo is just, I'm going to track them down. I'm going to show them I am righteous. I am, even if I'm not, I'm righteous. Even if I'm
Yeah.
one of the bad men, I'm still going to, I'm needed because I need to keep the bad men from the door. You know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
becomes like
Indeed.
something judgmental and horrible and polarizing and us against them. And anyway, as lots of things in Mapo. Uh,
Exactly. I
yeah.
couldn't have
So,
said it better myself. So relevant.
yeah, exactly. So,
Mm.
yeah,
Morality, it's an interesting thing. You know, it's supposed to show us the right way to live, but in so many cases, as you suggested,
yep,
in the hands of unenlightened, ordinary human beings, um, it sort of leads us in directions that are
exactly. Just
unproductive.
not good.
Yeah. Morality has been used as, I mean, in one sense, it's been I was actually having a conversation with my brother a while back. We were sort of debating the usefulness of religion. I'm coming from the perspective of someone who believes that religion is, the argument was that, bad things end up being done in the name of religion, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, even Buddhism, which has, nonviolence as a core tenet, right?
Yep.
Bad things have been done in the name of Buddhism.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say I want to just qualify that a little bit, because compared to other religions, I'd say far less has been done by Buddhism compared to other religions.
Yeah. No, I do think that is true.
The other ones are far more engendering, or far more what's the word I'm looking for? Far more perpetuating of violence than Buddhism and
right.
any of the weak. Like, it's not even close. Not even close. Not even close. So
you do have problems like the Crusades, and also burning people alive for believing different things. Those things are
terrorism, terrorism, terrorist acts from various religions, but all kinds of, anyway, yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
sorry,
there certainly are, I think, issues that are unique, or problems that are unique to different faiths based on their history and development and so on and so forth. But I do want to say that, for example, I think if Jesus, the historical Jesus, had been told that, well, in 500, 1,000 years, your reputed followers will be, burning people alive for believing, in things that aren't Buddha. I think Jesus would not have been happy with that news. let's say so. And I think that, but yeah, I mean, it's true that every religion has its skeletons in the closet, shall we say?
Well, it's like with Buddhism, it's not baked into the actual fabric of the religion.
No.
Whereas other religions, it's it's written into it. The violence you can easily justify. It's written into it.
Yeah.
It's written into the fabric of their scriptures in there. Whereas Buddhism, there's some things where it says you need, to defend in provisional teachings. So that's the big difference.
Right.
In provisional teachings, older teachings, older times, I think, didn't the Buddha talk about appropriate times for defense and so forth? But anyway.
And I do think we as Buddhists are really fortunate in our scriptural canon, because in that vast collection, in the Tripitaka, the Chinese, classical Chinese canon that we sort of regard as the word of the Buddha, it's, in my opinion, a wonder of the world. I mean, and
definitely.
the Korean, it's called the Tripitaka Koreana. It's the Korean edition of the Tripitaka. It is, have you ever seen like a picture of like the library of these, they're printing blocks, and it's like, the world's first and largest, data server, basically, containing replicable, the Buddhist scriptures in their entirety in Chinese characters that are, replicable. I mean, they can be printed. And according to a source that I read, that entire, with all those thousands upon thousands, the vastness of the full Mahayana Buddhist canon, there are no known errors in those wood blocks. I mean,
Wow.
think about that for a moment.
Yeah. No known
That's
errors and no.
no
Wow.
known errors. So that's how well our scriptures have been
Preserved.
preserved, you know.
And if you think about the incredible memorization practices before they were written down, before they were all written down, it's amazing those techniques and the skill that they had in doing that. You know, it's not like when people talk about, well, when the oral tradition of a religion or a culture before the written language. It's not quite the same thing when it's Buddhism. It's not an oral, it's not an oral tradition. It's an oral, like, memorization,
science.
Expert, finely honed expert memorization practice that
it's like a science, really. In fact, many of the Buddha's disciples were formerly, Brahmins or followers of Hindu religion. And in Hindu religion as well, the transmission of scripture via memorization and recitation was refined to a very high level. In fact, the Vedas, which were the Buddha often makes reference to, the Vedas, and those were the primary scriptures of Hinduism, and probably the oldest, some among the oldest, if not the oldest, scriptural texts, sacred writings in human history. And these were, these were the oral transmissions of sages who were like listening to the universe, and then hearing, and what they heard became the content of the Vedas. And then they were transmitted orally over centuries and centuries. And scholars have actually looked at the content of the Vedas and found that the customs and some of the language that is preserved in the Vedas predate by centuries when they were actually written on paper, which shows that these texts are actually preserving an ancient way of life, an ancient customs and ideas and traditions that way predate their being written down. So
yeah, exactly.
It's quite amazing, really.
Yeah, it is. And one other thing I wanted to say, just coming back to the whole violence in religion topic there, that briefly we covered, was even in Buddhism, where and it's for defense, even where that is like in the Buddhist sutras, it's just, there's not a lot of that. It's like a small, very minuscule percentage of where the Buddha discusses such things. Like, it's like not even, compared to the whole overall teaching, which is mainly around, basically, the mind stream and things to do to, move toward enlightenment, to clear the mind stream, and so and everything else revolves around that. So even morality and the precepts and things are designed to help you clear your mind stream, to make it easier to meditate, to make it, all those kinds of things in the Buddhist teaching. Right. So even including these, including these teachings about, or things that the Buddha may have said about defend, or may have said about defending oneself. Right. It's like a small, but it's just a, and what is the main thing is do not, do not harm, do not, kill, do not harm. That is like,
right.
the
Yeah.
main. So whereas other religions, I don't know if they can really say that.
Yeah, I think
So as much.
so
Yeah.
with
Anyway,
Buddhism,
but yeah.
it all goes back to that verse in the Dharmapada, right?
We've just slowed down here.
Knowing. Okay, are we good now?
Sorry, bear with
I
it a
think.
sec. There you go. Go ahead. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Do no harm, right? Is in the Dharmapada. So one of the oldest, what is thought to be one of the oldest kind of seminal, Buddhist texts is knowing that other beings feel pain as you feel pain, do not inflict pain on other beings, right? So the basic principle of do no harm, and also the golden rule, right? What we call the golden rule is do not do to other people what you wouldn't want them to do to you.
Yeah.
The Buddha was the first
I like the way that's
express that principle, right?
Now, how does he say? What's the Buddhist version? Because I like it's very sort of different than
it's
say in the Dhammapada. Do you remember the exact
unfortunately word? I can't remember it word for word, but it's basically do not be knowing that you do not want to be harmed by others. Do not cause harm to other beings. So it's the principle of don't, it's the basic principle of non-violence and not harming, not causing harm. And that beyond just not harm in this case doesn't mean, just, using a word to cut people. It means words in Buddhism, saying things that cause people harm, doing things that cause people harm.
We're having
these are all
we're having some difficulties with connection.
Negative, actions. So
can you hear me? We're having some difficulties. I'm gonna go off screen.
Are you there?
I am here. I'm here. I'm gonna go off. I'm gonna go off of video. There. Can you hear me better?
Okay, I can hear you perfectly now. Could you hear what I was saying?
Well, it was sort of distorting, so we might need
out.
Okay. It might in the ultimate video. It might in the recording it might not, but the way when I heard it. Can you just maybe we should go off screen for a bit if you just take yourself.
Let me turn my video off. Yeah. I see your Wi-Fi bar is on the lowest bar. So it may be a problem with your Wi-Fi reception.
It could be. Bear with me a sec. I'm going to just going to close up some things. And bear with me a sec. Okay. Is that a bit better? Has that changed anything?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly well. So it may be that the Wi-Fi will kind of
sort itself out in a minute. Yeah, hopefully. But anyway.
So where was I?
So you just make that last point you were making again.
No, I just wanted to say that the basic principle of not doing harm to other beings is from the very beginning, the very earliest texts of Buddhism is a clear part of Buddhist thought and Buddhist, ethics, right? And specifically, to there's a text, maybe it's the Dharmapada as well, but to not doing what is wrong, and then the doing of that which is good. This is the teaching of all Buddhas, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, the moral and ethical aspects of Buddhism are sort of hugely, important to the tradition.
Yeah.
And there's a great introduction, a book that's it's called, I think, An Introduction to Buddhist Ethics by Peter Harvey, published by Cambridge University Press. And I own that book, and I have read it from cover to cover, and it is a really good, thorough overview of Buddhist ethics. I really can't recommend it enough. In fact, it's probably the best book of its on its subject that's ever been written, in my opinion.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I can send you the link if you're interested too, because it's a really good book. And Jodo Shinshu, of course,
I was just going to say, let's bring it down to bring it back to, let's bring it into Jodo Shinshu now. Just the yeah. Anyway,
I have heard the opinion, or I saw the opinion somewhere. It was by some Jodo Shinshu figure, presumably not Japanese, who commented along the lines that we need a Jodo Shinshu ethics, and implying that hitherto we haven't had one, and what that would look like. But the problem with that point of view, in my opinion, is Jodo Shinshu ethics is Buddhist ethics. There isn't a Jodo Shinshu ethics distinct from Buddhist ethics, right? It's not. It's continuous. It's not. There isn't
exactly
any discontinuity there. Jodo Shinshu ethics is Buddhist ethics.
Yeah.
Exactly. That being said, there are distinct...
I wanted to talk about, it's more like I want to talk about the Jodo Shinshu perspective or view.
Right, exactly.
The broader Buddhist ethics, the broader Buddhist morality.
Yeah.
Buddhist.
So what is the Jodo Shinshu perspective on Buddhist ethics, right? And the Jodo Shinshu perspective is that, well, first of all, we have to consider the difference between, I think, ethics and morality. So, morality tends, I think, to many people tends to imply kind of morals, cultural norms of what is right and wrong that tend to perhaps change or be different from place to place, and even in they change over time to some degree. I think they stay the same to a large extent, but and then an ethic, when we're really talking about ethics, we're talking about more of a deeper, philosophical question of what is right and wrong, and why are things right and wrong. And this is where we get into, a good example in Greek philosophy is like the Nicomachean Ethics, the famous book by Aristotle. The Greek philosophers did a lot of thinking about this stuff, what makes actions right or wrong. And Buddhism, in my view, also is more concerned with ethics than it is with morals per se, and the Buddhist ethic, if we're talking about, what is ethical behavior, first of all, the principle of not doing harm, that is a big, basically the basic cornerstone, I would say. And I want to bring up the larger sutra because in the sutra that is the basic text of our tradition, there's a very clear summary of this, and it's where the Shakyamuni is describing Dharmakara's practice as a bodhisattva, and so it follows the when he declares his vows, and okay.
I can't hear you now. You're muffled.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. He avoided all wrong speech that would bring harm upon himself or others or both. He engaged in right speech that would bring benefit to himself or others or both. And this right here is, I think our Wi-Fi is picking up now, so
Yeah, that's why
let's try some video.
Yeah, that's why I went back on video.
Yeah, this right here is the key point of Buddhist ethics. So what divides right actions from wrong actions? It clearly can't just be what society says. I mean, if we're taking our ethics from whatever society says, then we're going to be misled quite a bit. We have to take, and that's the point of when we're talking about like what is the Buddhist ethic, it's actions, speech, thoughts that bring harm to ourself or to.
I can't hear you now.
Did I?
Yeah, you dropped the phone there. Looks like, and then
Okay.
And then it
Hold
cut
on.
out.
Why did I think I cut out there? Okay.
There we go. Start again. Yeah. So you said actions.
Yeah.
So thought, speech, actions that bring harm to self or others.
Yeah. Or both.
Or both.
Oneself, others, or both, right? And then what is the definition of good in ethical terms? Well, it's actions of thought, speech, or body, physical action that brings benefit, that brings well-being to oneself, to others, or to both. So this is like the basic Buddhist ethic, I think. And Buddhist ethics has sometimes been falsely equated or compared to like utilitarianism, like the greatest good for the greatest number, that kind of thing. Huge misconception, mistake. It's not at all correct. Not even remotely. The basic core of Buddhist ethics is in terms of ethical action. And in Buddhism, action has three types. In Japanese, it's shin, ku, i, which means actions of the body, so physical actions, things we do. Actions of the mouth, so speech. And then actions of the mind or of intentions, so things that we, think. And so these three forms of action in ethical terms to be considered, right or wrong would be based on whether they bring harm or well-being to oneself, to others, or to both. So that's the basic, Buddhist ethic in a nutshell. Now, in terms of morality, there's cultural customs, things that differ between cultures, and even over time, things change. Morality, morals, customs, those things evolve and change. But the basic core of ethical action doesn't change. Doing no harm, doing good, doing well for well-being for others, that's universal, right? So even if there's another planet that has a totally different, ideas about society and marriage or whatever, the universal truth of the universal ethic of not doing harm and doing benefit, being beneficial, right, is something that's universal. So I think, would you agree with me there, like in terms of what defines Buddhism? In terms of Buddhism, it's not so much concerned with morals as it is with an ethic that guides us no matter where we are, in a universal sense.
I would agree with that. It's more an ethic than a moral code. Obviously, and it's more of a supportive thing than a central set of tenets. It's more of a supportive of, like we were talking about earlier, the process of fixing the mind stream, fixing and sorting out and clearing the mind stream, the consciousness, and walking toward enlightenment. It's more of a support of that rather than a central aspect of, that's a very different focus than I think other religions and other forms of morality. There's a very specific goal. I mean, that, even in what you were talking about in the story of Dharmakara, in the account of Dharmakara, where those things was being mentioned, that's referring to the Eightfold. There's some referencing kind of the Eightfold Path, right speech, right actions, right work, right, all those different aspects of things, and Buddhist ethic is just one part of that, is just one very essential and important, but it's just one spoke of the wheel, as it were. One, it's not this central, and there's a specific goal in mind. So I guess one of my questions is, in provisional forms of Buddhist teachings of Buddhism, it's to support the process of the practices to get you on the path to enlightenment. It's supportive of the teaching, practice, and realization to get you to, that you're doing, that's being taught to you by others. It's supportive of that process. But in Jodo Shinshu, as we've talked about, it's the reverse of that. Amida is doing the practice. Amida kind of is this. Amida is supporting us in the practice. Amida is giving us the giving his mind, giving us his realization, giving us his practice, giving us his teaching. So in that kind of reverse polarity of Jodo Shinshu, since we're that supportiveness of the mind, of the mind stream, practice and realization for the mind stream to get better, to take the medicine. How does it fit in with Jodo Shinshu as a
Yeah.
support. And we've mentioned in other discussions, and I mentioned this in
Mhm.
my other videos and things and other discussions I've had, is that when I'm trying to follow the Buddhist ethic, is however
Mm.
ineptly and badly I can, and I do, it does support my listening deeply. Obviously,
Mhm.
Amida is making me able to listen deeply. Amida is
Mm.
is is causing me to say Nambutsu. Is
Mm.
but it does. I'm when I'm not when I'm not completely wrapped up in just you know um when I'm not wrapped up in behavior that would distract me, basically,
Mm.
and or causing tension with other beings, when I'm wrapped up in you know when I'm wrapped up in
Mm.
thoughts, speech, and actions that cause you know problems in relationships and friendships, and it,
Mhm.
it's easier to listen. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So it kind of is play in a similar role in that sense. But anyway, that's
Yeah.
what I'm sort of getting at. Is it's a
Yeah.
there's a it does seem like there would be a different angle. I'm looking for that Shinron flip it interpretation. You know, I'm looking for that
Yeah.
Renyo sum it up in one sentence or two. Boom.
Yeah.
This is how it is. This is how it works. I know it's more complex than that, but that's what I'm looking for, is the
Mhm.
Jodo Shinshu interpretation of how that
Mhm.
works in yeah, in
Yeah,
Amida's
and I
reverse
think
polarity of Buddhism.
yes. And I think I have the answer for you. Or rather, Shinron has the answer for us. So let's try to dig into that. Um, so let's start with Honen. So what Honen Shonin said is that um, you, in terms of how you live your life, you should live in the way that enables you to focus on Amida to say the Nimbutsu, right?
Yeah.
And some of Honen's followers took um, sort of misinterpreted the meaning of you know Pure Land Buddhism and Amida's vow to mean that uh, because it's kind of the idea of licensed evil, right?
Yeah.
Like, because the
That's
vow saves me no matter
antinomianism.
what, it
Woohoo!
doesn't matter what I do.
Yeah.
Right?
Party time. Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
So some of Honen's followers were doing those things,
Mhm.
and that caused social disturbance, and people, caused people to point to say, oh, these Nimbutsu followers are crazy and they're doing all these bad things. So, in response to that, Honen sort of gave rules for the Nimbutsu followers. Said, you need to obey the law. You need to not get go on drunken orgies, all these moral ethical rules. And so that was Honen's response to that issue, right? um but I think when we get to Shinron Shonin, this ties in. Actually, I wanted to talk about Kobai Sensei's lecture on Tanisho. And I think this, when we're talking about what is the meaning of evil from the perspective of Jodo Shinshu. This is a key concept. So first, I'd like to read the passage from Tanisho. So let me bring that up here. Hopefully I have it open. Okay, so famous passage from Tanisho. The Nimbutsu is the single path free of hindrances. Why is this? To practicers who have realized Shinjin, the gods of the heavens and earth bow in homage, and Moras and non-Buddhists present no obstruction. No evil act can bring about karmic results, nor can any good act equal the Nimbutsu. So what we see in this passage from Tanisho, the idea that evil is not an obstruction to the working of Amida's vow, Amida's promise to save all beings, right? So this is a crucial truth, is that when we talk about Amida as the Buddha of unhindered light shining throughout the 10 directions, it means that the light, this light of wisdom, which is what Amida, this infinite light of wisdom, is not obstructive. It's not blocked by whatever actions, evil or otherwise, I may do. It in its salvific efficacy, the power of the vow is not, there are no roadblocks. there's no obstacles, right? And that's what Tanisho is trying to communicate here. And in Jodo Shinshu, we call this idea, elsewhere in Tanisho, it talks about the idea that, well, if a good person can be born in the Pure Land, then, it goes without saying that even an evil person can be born in the Pure Land, right? This idea, which was, is foreign to the thought of true Pure Land Buddhism, that being good will somehow get you to be born in the Pure Land, right? Which is not the case. you can't be born in the Pure Land through conventional moral ethical actions, right? In fact, the only way beings can possibly be born in the true fulfilled Pure Land is through the working of the vow power, the working of Amida, the light, the name. That's the only way. Now, when we're talking about the idea of trying to be born in the Pure Land through doing good, that's I want to say that maybe the 19th or the 20th vows, the provisional vows, the provisional vows of birth.
That only gets you into the borderlands.
Yeah, that only gets into
along with faith, but you're still doing some self-power practice there, and that including moral behavior, virtue, etc. That will only get you into the borderland. But that takes even that, it takes a lot. You have to be a very good practitioner of the 19th and 20th vows for that to even be a remote possibility, isn't it? So
absolutely. And
there can't be a heck of a lot of people in the borderlands either.
Yeah, and in fact, the scriptures say that the people who are born in the borderlands are many, and the people who are born in the true land are
Are few.
few.
Yeah. So it's even
So
fewer than
yeah,
it's even
and
fewer in the fulfilled
exactly,
land than in the anyway.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
and
but
why?
that kind of blows my mind. Like that kind of blows my
Mm,
mind. It's a little confusing. I suppose
mhm,
maybe in other ages when of the
mm,
right dharma and the semblance dharma, more people may be able to effectively do self-power
mm,
practices in pure land related self-power practices in conjunction with some amount of
mm,
the faith or whatever to get
mhm,
more people, more being, what I mean, could during those
mm.
ages than now. But it's still, you know, I suppose if you'd say it that a lot more are born into the borderlands than are born into the fulfilled land, then that kind of makes sense. But I can't
Mm,
imagine that a lot of people have the merit and virtue and skill, and unless they're fairly
mhm.
extraordinary beings, to get into even the borderland anyway,
Yes, well,
or
that
the
is part
9
of
grades of
the
lotuses.
picture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Anyway, so
so
sorry, that was just a little
no, no,
kind
no,
of
that leads
diversion
actually
there, but
that's great because it leads right into what I was going to say next, which is um, the reason those vows exist, the reason Dharmakara made those vows, is precisely because we as human beings are so attached to our own actions and our own ideas of what is right and wrong, our own discriminatory,
yeah,
moralistic ideas.
yeah,
And so, although the true path of salvation in the Pure Land, to liberation, transcends conventional, moral good and evil. Um, what Amida Buddha did is create a way in which people who think that they can be born in the Pure Land through doing good can be born in a kind of um, Pure Land,
yeah,
a
a kind of provisional
provisional
way. Yeah,
provisional
provisional
land
pure land. Yeah,
through, if they direct the merit of those practices, those actions. So it's actually Amida is spreading the net as wide as he can
yeah. He's
to
making
capture.
provision for everyone. He's
Yeah,
making
yeah,
provision for everyone,
exactly. Yeah,
even through
that's
these provision. Yeah, yeah,
that's a great. I love that. Where did
yeah.
you read that
I
somewhere,
just
or did
no,
you?
no. That's
No.
just
Okay.
I just come up with this stuff sometimes. I don't know where, I don't know how, but I just do.
That's
So
great. That's actually exactly what the idea behind provisional is. I mean, it's making provision, making
yeah,
provision
exactly,
for
exactly.
other beings, right? Um,
I love language.
who?
So the nuance,
Mm,
whenever I could, there's a
yeah,
nuance of language to pull in there. It's
that's perfect.
which is obviously with the Dharma masters a Jodo Shinshu tradition of pulling multiple
Indeed.
meanings of nuances of words of meanings into just one character or phrase or word. Anyway,
Yes,
sorry.
absolutely. Exactly. So just as you said, making provision for people who don't necessarily realize the true meaning of the vow, and have that true turning of the heart mind, the true experience, the true um turn, I mean, Shinran says, flowing into the ocean of the vow, so people who don't have that, but are still thinking, still aspiring to be born in the Pure Land, still thinking that good, doing good or evil has some relationship to whether they will be born in the Pure Land. That is the point of those provisional vows, to so that those people don't get entirely left out.
Exactly.
Just completely, because you can't be born like it says in the scripture. It's difficult. I fear it's difficult to be born there through conventional good.
Yeah.
And that means, as Shonen said, the only thing that can enable us to be born in the Pure Land is the good of Namu Amida Butsu, the good of Amida Buddha, which is the pure mind, the sincere mind of Amida being given to us, right? So that is the basic facts about birth in the Pure Land from the perspective of more, and that's why Tanisho, to go back to Tanisho, is saying that idea that well, it goes without saying that a good person will be born in the Pure Land. So, or even so, even an evil person could be born there. And Tanisho flips that around and says, actually, it's the opposite, because and this is the idea of akunin shoki, which means in Japanese, the evil person is the true object. And object here refers to object of Amida's salvation, object of Amida's compassion and work.
Devotion.
And yeah.
And connection, connecting
exactly.
with us.
Yeah. And there's a passage in, I believe, the Nirvana Sutra that is really wonderful, and it expresses exactly this idea. Is that, let's say there's a mother who has children, and one of those children is sick or suffering, or maybe not as gifted as the others. And the Buddha asks his disciples, what child do you think that the mother loves the most? And the answer is...
It's always the one that's the most naughty.
Yeah. The
it's
child
the one
that is naughty.
That's the toughest one to get to do what, he's supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. We are the children. The Buddha is the mother of compassion. Shinran says, Amida is our mother of compassion. Sometimes we use masculine terms or pronouns to refer to Amida, but Shinran actually says that Amida is our mother of compassion, right?
And that totally fits with that. It totally fits. That's a great analogy. Is that the mother they always tend to like or favor more the naughty one. Not that Amida doesn't have the mind of equanimity and all of that, but
right. It's an analogy, right?
Yeah, it's an analogy. Exactly. And it's a way for him it's a way in his in the Samboka Kaya form for us to be able to relate to it and receive all that. So mom favors the naughty one. Moms always favor the naughty ones. It's very true. Yes. And even if you look at it as the prodigal, the prodigal
exactly.
You look for the prodigal son, quote unquote, the prodigal sibling in whatever kind of religion, whatever version of that there is. They're the one that's embraced with open arms, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
In
so
Christianity and the Gospels,
yeah,
there's a similar where
yeah,
the prodigal son
yeah,
comes back and the
yeah,
father is overjoyed
yeah,
and he throws a big feast, and then
yeah,
the other son who has been there being good all the time, he's
yeah.
like, well, where's my feast, where's my
What
reward,
about
I'm just
me?
doing the good things.
And that's, well, it's because that's its own, it's its own reward. You should just want to do
Mm,
that because you're getting rewarded
yeah,
by the fact that you have the life you have instead of living,
yeah, yeah,
anyway. But yeah, so
yeah,
it definitely fits that that
yeah.
parent favoring the naughty one, thing. But there is a Buddhist kind of loosely Buddhist version
Mm,
of the prodigal son. It's in it, and there's one in the Lotus Sutra, isn't it? There's about
mm,
the son who doesn't know he's the son and
yes,
goes off
yes.
and winds up doing all kinds of things,
Hmm.
living as a servant and living as,
Mm,
just toiling the land and
yeah,
homeless and all sorts, just is completely impoverished, um, and doesn't even know, and then he has this benefactor, then the father
mm,
starts to take care of him without him even knowing it, I think. or
yeah.
and he or yeah, he hires him on because the son, isn't that the son doesn't even know it's his father
Hmm.
anymore. Like he's so far gone by the life he's led, something like that. He's so far gone in his consciousness and his
Mm,
that he doesn't even recognize his father, doesn't even recognize his own identity. So kind of, doesn't recognize Buddha nature, doesn't recognize the Buddha,
hmm.
you know, um, and so, but the father finds a way to, the father, this is very similar to Amida, does anything and everything to try to find him in the world, first of all,
Mm,
and then to at least bring him back into his land, to get him back in through all these little different means of hiring him behind the
hmm.
scenes without him, without the son even knowing that his
Yeah.
dad's looking after him this whole time, and bringing him in and closer into his land, his land.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's a very similar kind of. Actually, I just realized that now. That's very similar to the Mita's work. Is
Yeah.
without us knowing it all, and through all these countless lifetimes of us of
Yes.
cluelessness, that he's been slowly but surely bringing us toward him, you know to eventually get
Yeah.
us into his land, into his household, into back in knowing who we are and what he is and who he is and what,
Mm.
anyway, sorry. So yeah, so it's very good.
No, that's wonderful. Exactly. That's great.
Talk about making provision. That's,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ultimate making provision,
Yeah.
without being caught. The
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Buddhas make provision for us,
Hmm.
and ultimately Amida Buddha is making the provision for us without us knowing it,
Mm.
before we, have a lifetime like this where we
Mm.
encounter can be conscious of it.
Exactly.
Anyway, sorry. So
No, that's wonderful.
that's
Um,
one of the nuances. That's where it came from, with the provision. I like to think
yeah.
of the provisional teachings, not just, that almost a lot of times when when various forms of Buddhism and Mahayana
Mm.
use the word
Mm.
provisional, it's almost like this slightly dismissive,
Down-putting
slightly,
kind of.
yeah,
Yeah.
this sort of slightly judgmental
Hmm.
kind of, in a Buddhist way, you know. But I like to think of it as, yeah, it's just the Buddha's making provision for
Mm.
us in every way that
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
possibly can,
That is right.
for the maximum possible number of
Yeah.
beings, rather than it just being, well, that's for that time, and
Hmm.
this is for now, and we don't need those quaint,
Yeah.
we don't need the lesser math now, you know what I mean? Like that.
Well,
Anyway,
that's exactly how Shinron describes the provisional vows, as having arisen from
yeah,
Amida's mind of great
yeah,
compassion.
yeah,
So
exactly.
the
Exactly.
same compassion that activated Dharmakara to make the 18th vow, which is his true intention, right? But that same compassion also, made him make the provisional vows to, again, to spread the net as wide as possible,
Exactly.
to bring in so many more, all of these people into the true. Now, of course, in Jodo Shinshu, the true meaning, right? That's why we call it Jodo Shinshu, the true
The essence,
essence.
the essence,
Yeah,
the essential.
is the 18th vow. So, in our school, we focus on that because we are, we're already reached a point where we understand, or we're supposed to be able to discern between the true and the provisional,
Yeah.
and then focus on what is true. So but yeah, the Lotus Sutra parable, that's great analogy. And this all is what Tanisho means by Akunin Shoki, right? The evil person. Now, the question is, and this is where things get really fun or really interesting, is what is the meaning of the evil person? Who is the evil person?
Yeah.
And
Well, I'll say it's
so
me.
yeah, well, yes, I mean, ultimately.
Yeah.
And
And
so I
us.
want to talk
Yeah.
about
You and me.
Kobai Sensei's discussion of this. And so Kobai Sensei wrote explaining this verse passage, and he said,
You're cutting in and out right now, Kyokan. You're
okay, how are we?
The sound, yeah.
How
I
are
could
we
see you.
now?
I
Is
could see
that
you
good?
fine, but it was just with whatever you were just doing, it was muffling.
Okay,
It was physically muffling the sound. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, how are we now? Is this good?
Perfect.
Okay. So evil. We're talking about the meaning of evil, because if we don't get the meaning right of evil person, suddenly this could be really, we could totally miss the point, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Completely wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. So
track them down.
Sensei,
change their ways.
Evil ways, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So Kobai Sensei explains there are three meanings to the term evil here, as used in or to the term evil as we use it commonly. So the first meaning is horitsu teki, which means legal evil. So what is right and wrong according to the law? So the law of the land, basically, I'll come back on screen as I discuss each of these. So, what the law says is right and wrong, right? So the law says that I can't skateboard in the street. The law also says that I can't, commit fraud or perjury in court, or shoot my neighbor's window. The law says many things, right, about what is what is right and wrong, right? And so that is legal, the legal definition of evil, of right and wrong, right? So on the one hand, we are always urged to obey the law. And this is what Rinyo Shonin means when he says, follow the principle, the law of the land, the law of the state, and then hold the Buddha Dharma in your heart, right? Just in a big problem in Rinyo's era was there were these kind of radical groups of Buddhists who were hearing, the idea that, well, evil is not an obstruction to birth in the Pure Land. And they were taking that and kind of running with it. And then they were rebelling, and they were fighting, and they were doing all of these things that weren't in keeping with, the true intention of Buddhism of Jodo Shinshu. So that's why Renyo always urges, follow the law, of the land. And I think you asked, well, how does this apply to us today? Living in, you and I both live in democratic societies, civil societies.
For the time being.
For the time being, in that sense,
and even then, it's questionable. It's questionable whether we still do. Anyway, but yeah.
And a modern liberal democracy in the sense that we have today is not something that existed in medieval Japan, right? So, but the basic principle still applies. I think it's we should follow the law of the land to the best, obviously. I mean, you'd kind of be stupid not to, right? Because the law is gonna, hunt you down, right?
It's a little thing called consequences.
Exactly. So it's a basic principle of living in society, right? It doesn't even need much explanation. So in the case of if we live in a democracy, in terms of civil participation, voting, that kind of thing, that's all something that I feel is good to do and encouraged. I mean, in terms, at least in America, I mean, unlike the United Kingdom, we have Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, Japanese immigrants have been part of American society for a century now, well over a century. And these people, these Japanese Americans have been, contributing to our society, right? As members of American society. So voting, civil participation, and also Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, devout believers and followers of the Buddha Dharma. So that's a great role model for, anyone in a democratic society who has the ability has the privilege, the rare, privilege and ability to express our voice in government.
Exactly.
So absolutely, as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, we should be, I think, participants in the fullest sense in civic duties, and that is really living up to the spirit of Shinran and Renyo and Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, who were originally in America. I mean, of course, in many cases they faced discrimination, racial discrimination, and of course we had during World War II they were imprisoned in concentration containment camps famously, and all of that. So a lot of injustice that they lived through, and so we can learn from that, even if we're not Japanese American, right? We can learn from that spirit of perseverance and non-discrimination, right? Which is at the core of our traditions. So I think that answers your question about the civic aspects of Jodo Shinshu teaching. So now let's move on to the second definition of evil. So now let me go back to the whiteboard here. All right, so the second meaning of evil, do toku teki. And what this means is moral evil.
Okay.
And this refers to actions that are, ethically wrong, right? So, in Buddhism, the five, the 10 evil actions, 5 grave offenses. Other religions have, definitions, lists of actions that are, morally wrong. But this refers to not just because the law says something is wrong doesn't, that's just the law, right?
Yeah.
But really looking at the ethical level, what actions are, right and wrong? Is it just because it's legal to do something does that mean that it's a good idea to do it, right? Depending on
exactly.
So Buddhism, for example, tends to one of the things the Buddha taught was we should abstain from intoxicants, right, or drugs. So these things may be legal, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good idea.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that goes for other things as well. So again, moral or ethical evil, this is not just the law, this is looking at what is ethically wrong. And again, these two meanings, legal and ethical evil, according to Kobai Sensei, this is not what Tanisho is talking about when it says the evil person is the object of Amida salvation. So someone who disobeys the law is stupid. and someone who does morally evil actions is just, not living up to what a human being should be, right?
So those foolish. Yeah.
Foolish, yeah.
Or immoral.
Exactly.
Or amoral.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. And this isn't just Buddhism, this is, universal.
Exactly.
So, what is the true meaning of evil in the evil person as the object of salvation? Going back to Kobai Sensei's whiteboard, the third definition is religious evil, shukyo teki. And then Kobai Sensei writes, through deep self-reflection arises the awareness of oneself, or arises the realization, the awakening to oneself as an evil person. This is what Tanisho, this is the meaning of evil in the evil person is the object of salvation. The evil person is the person who, through deep self-reflection, but also more importantly through the illumination of Amida's light, because my own self-reflection can only, or the self-reflection that's based on my own power, self-power, can only get you so far. The true awareness of oneself as evil in this religious subjective sense comes through being shown upon by Amida's light.
Yep. It comes back to the encounter with Amida's light.
Exactly.
Everything comes back to that, pretty much. Yeah. So it's suddenly through Amida's light, seeing ourselves for what we are.
Yeah.
Through Amida's light, through Amida's power, seeing ourselves as totally ruled by blind passions, don't even know where they come from, all our count, totally ignorant of our past lives, even though we're Buddhists and we know we had these past existences, have no knowledge of them.
Mm.
We've done, we've got zero merit, and we have zero capacity for doing any self-power practice for any
Mm.
that's going to get us anywhere or do any good. Is that sort of seeing
Yeah.
us as the Bombu that we are,
Yes.
the
It's
foolish.
awakening to ourselves, like Honen Shonin said. People attain birth in the Pure Land by becoming their foolish selves. This is, and what he means by that is we awaken to ourselves as, like you said, beings who have self-interest, who are, ignorance, greed, anger.
Ruled by the three poisons.
We
Yep.
realize that we are constantly giving under the spell, as it were, of these bono, these blind passions. And more we realize, and this is where it's hard to communicate in language, because this is such a pivotal, like you were talking, I want that Shinron shift, that
Shinron flip it.
flip,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, this is the Shinron flip. But I'm trying to communicate. It's the evil person is not the person who's doing evil stuff, and not, it's the person who becomes aware of themselves as evil and is therefore the object of Amita's compassion and salvation. So this is a huge,
it's a positive thing.
Yes.
Really,
exactly.
ultimately that's part of the flip, is it's an extremely positive thing to realize I'm an evil person. And therefore I am the object of object of Amita's teaching. His salvation is for me alone, me Gankai alone. So it's a very
exactly. So what happens often is someone will be like, well, I'm a good person, I'm doing things right, but Amita will save those other people too. They just have to, get things together and repent of their evil ways, and they can be like me, and be saved. No. You just completely missed the whole the whole point, the whole picture. It's
realizing not, this is something that a Dharma brother of mine and I used to talk about a lot. I don't know if he considers me a Dharma brother anymore, but I still considered him a Dharma brother. We used to say we're level 0. We've got nothing to contribute. We've got no merit. We've got zero merit, zero virtues. We've got nothing to contribute. We have nothing to add. We're zero. We're zeros. That's how we're Bombu. We've got nothing. Probably negatives, actually. We're not even zeros. We're like, but because of that, and it almost goes immediately with that, is I kind of have everything then, because I have Amita's light. I have Amita's salvation is for me alone.
Yeah, exactly. And the part of this awareness is the awareness of myself as a being that is living at the expense of others and is wholly indebted to all those around me, just for my daily, for everything, and yet I am blind to that. And I willfully selfishly think of myself as, this heroic figure who isn't indebted to anyone. So awakening to one's ingratitude to the universe, to everything, to all the causes and conditions. And so this is a major shift, and is really the 180, the reverse,
flip. The Shinran flip, man.
The Shinran flip, let's call it. And there's so much more to say.
There's probably a surfer term in there. We can.
Yeah.
What's the surfer term for that flip?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Exactly. Or the skateboard.
Yeah.
So there's a passage from Shinran that I actually found, read, and I thought this perfectly expresses what Kobai Sensei was talking about with the three, kinds of evil, and then what is the true meaning of the evil person. So we're a little over time, and we didn't get to a chanting Sambutsuge yet.
Well, and I think we might need to do another session on this topic, because there's a whole other,
or
once we get through this, or a whole set of sessions, because there's, once we kind of get to this point, then there's a whole, I want to talk about, okay, what does that mean in terms of politics and
the practical aspects.
Like where do I stand with that? And do you know what I mean? What is the best thing for
absolutely
the world and economics? And anyway,
right.
Yeah.
So let me share before we end.
But but continue with this. Let's finish this.
Yeah.
This is key. This is crucial. This is the flip. So
this is the
realizing,
flip. This
realizing you're an evil through deep reflection that Amida makes possible through his light. We see through Amida's light, we see ourselves for what we are. We're the evil person. We're the Bombu, ruled by the three poisons, the blind passions, have nothing to contribute, have no capacity for self-power practice or anything that could put us on the road to enlightenment. And therefore we're the object.
Yes.
Of Amida's salvation. Boom. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
I'll call myself an evil person any day, if that's
And
it becomes this weirdly positive thing.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do
not
with
to say I'm not ashamed. Not to say I'm not ashamed of all my past existences of ignorance and greed and anger and and all the stuff, all my actions of thoughts, words, and deeds in every provisional existence. It's not to say that, but it does. It's a it's a different thing than other contexts of being an evil person.
Well, in a practical, because I think you are really asking, like, what is the practical effect of this? Like in a day-to-day ethical, how do I live my life sense?
Yeah.
What the key aspect, it's not that we become aware through our own power of the evil that we've done and then we repent and vow to live a better life. It's that through Amida's light shining on our blind passions, we become ashamed of the fact that we have hitherto been living in this self-centered, evil, truly religiously evil, spiritually, this self-centered evil way, blind to it, ungrateful. And that becomes that sense of shame is what becomes a
Yes.
what drives us to, not to live, in a way that is not the same as how we were when we were just,
Before. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I think that is kind of the way it works in Jodo Shinshu.
And it's Amida's, and that light shining on us and that shame, it's Amida empowering us to live in any kind, to whatever capacity we can, in some kind of ethical, moral way. It's not us summoning,
right,
our own,
and
virtue and our own heroic effort to try to be moral. It's Amida through that light, through us, the shame that we feel wanting to. It's through Amida. It's through Amida. It's such a different motivation. It's such. I was talking about this with my other. We talk about this actually a lot. Some couple of my other Dharma brothers who I'm still in touch with. That is that it's such a different motivation for wanting to behave ethically and morally in Jodo Shinshu. It's such a different. It comes from such a different angle, and you kind of want to. I want to. It's whereas in other contexts, I felt like I had to, or I felt like, well, I got to do this otherwise, and it's got to come from me. I've got to really sincerely be this somehow, even though, you know what I mean? Where it's not, it's such a different motivating thing to want to try to live ethically.
Yeah. And it comes from, on the one hand, our awareness through Amida's light of our own, evil in the religious sense, right? In the true sense. And then also gratitude. Because we are grateful, and that the gratitude is also an important aspect of this, right?
Yeah. And it makes us want to, because we are so grateful. We want to. Yeah. Sort of
I remember there was a teacher, Abe Sensei in Japan. I've listened to his lectures on occasion, and he kind of described it as like a brake, like the brake of a car, and people who just live without any religious notion of religion or spirituality, kind of like they're in a car that has no brakes. But if for a person who has awakened to Amida's compassion and has heard the message of Akuni, of the true, of oneself, it has nothing to do with other people. It has everything to do with me. This is all a message for me, right? Once I've heard that message, that becomes like kind of like a break, right? And so it's not that I'm a good person now, but it's that there is an awareness of oneself and one's limitations. In this case, severe limitations as an ordinary, unenlightened and selfish being. That becomes you can't be the same have the same awareness that you did before that encounter, right?
Yeah.
And that, I think, is what Shinran is talking about.
Great analogy on so many levels. That's a really great, because of the I think I was thinking of the inertia of karma, of our karmic, past karma, and all the seeds of that, us on the break as a Bombu, there's nothing. It's not going to do any good. In fact, we'll probably go even further forward. We'll probably hit the wrong controls.
Well, we just have
we don't have any. We've got no thruster. We've got no braking thrusters. We got no thrusters to.
Yeah, there's only a gas pedal, and the gas pedal is the GAS greed, anger, stupidity, or ignorance
Yeah,
is the three poisons.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
we're just
It's
the life of the Bombu is pedal to the metal, blind passions.
it's warp 10. Warp 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Until we
into
crash into the wall, right?
until we, exactly. So we need, it's Amida gives us the thrusters. Amida gives us the inertial dampeners and the braking thrusters
Mm,
to
yeah.
it's Amida's power that gives us that, not
Mm.
I don't know. Anyway, but there's two things I quickly wanted to say, thoughts I had during this.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to
Mhm.
flesh out a little bit. So one was coming back to the reverse polarity, and including a discussion of morality and ethics, Buddhist ethics in this. It's Dharmakara in all his, his heroic, virtuous, meritorious actions that accumulated all the merit through his ethical, his heroic, amazing, incredible, heroic, moral living and ethical behavior that accumulated all the merit that he's giving to us. So it's kind of like that's where, so our any virtue we have, any merit comes from Amida's accumulation due to his ethical behavior, isn't it? And his, do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yes,
Part of the
absolutely. And
reverse polarity.
more
The virtue doesn't come from us. Our goal isn't
right.
to try to be virtuous. Our goal isn't to try to be.
No.
The virtue comes from Amida. All the virtue and all the merits come from Amida and from his ethical behavior through being Dharmakara, And anyway, so that's one point I wanted to kind of bring up quickly.
And Shinran makes clear that action is not ordinary conventional moral. That action of Dharmakara is not ordinary conventional ethical action, right? It is the actions of a bodhisattva.
Yeah, superhuman.
It is because the bodhisattva has awareness into true reality.
Yeah.
That is how those actions become what Shinran calls true and real. So he says, we as ordinary unenlightened beings, we are incapable of action that can be called true and real, because when Dharmakara was doing those things, there wasn't a moment when he wasn't dwelling in with unconditioned wisdom and compassion. So it was total, there's a perfect. So that's the key
highest
point.
Perfect ethics. Highest perfect true and real ethics. Okay, so that perfect. That's what and then the other thing I wanted to say, I was thinking with repentance, and in Buddhism there's those 3 levels of repentance, where like one level you feel when you truly feel shame, and you kind of I don't know, I can't remember the 3 things, but when you become kind of flushed in body and you feel the shame. Next level is you're pouring sweat from your body, and I can't remember what they are, but sweat is coming from your body.
I think it's in a past.
And then the third is like you're crying blood and bleeding from your pores or something. I can't, it's just these really that it's levels of shame that you can kind of imagine, but never as a Bombu I would never be able to experience or even come close. And it talks about, isn't there teachings where it talks about that Nembutsu is the highest for a Bombu, for us ordinary beings. Nembutsu is the highest form. It is the ultimate repentance.
Yes,
That-
yes, absolutely.
Where is
Yeah,
that referenced, or where is that?
that is in a passage by Zindo Daishi or Shandao, the Chinese
Okay.
master, and it's exactly pretty much as you said. And then and Tanisho also there's a passage in
thought so,
Tanisho
yeah.
that touches on this. It says there are some people who say that every time we do something evil, we need to repent about it. So we need to continuously be repenting
yes,
on our
one of those
actions.
divergent teachings that every time you get angry, or every time, you have to repent. Anyway, sorry, continue, please.
And then Tanisho says for us practitioners who have awakened to Amida's compassion and working, and who are saying the Nimbutsu, that's it. Like that is the true meaning of, of a turning of the heart and mind. The flip, as we've been calling it.
The flip, man.
That's the flip. So in everything beyond that, we leave to Amida. We don't have to flagellate ourselves. We don't have to, go into agonies of remorse. We just leave it all. The weight is completely taken off our shoulders. It's no longer, so that's an important, very important point. Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah.
And now, finally,
yes,
was that your 2
that
points?
was it. Those are the only two other things, like for today.
Great.
Anyway, there's lots of other. I think this is
Yeah.
definitely a to be continued kind of.
It is. In fact,
discussion.
that passage I was going to read. How about we save it for next time?
Okay.
And we start the next session kind of reviewing the idea, what we discussed today with evil and Tanisho. And I will try to find some other related passages as well. And then I wanted to tie it into what Shinran wrote. And I think it will really shed light on, because like you said, this is such an important, key, crucial concept. It's not just a one session thing, I don't think so. So let's save it for next time. And then I can meet next Sunday. So if you are able to.
Yes.
Same time, same station.
Time,
okay.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
All right.